Hey, what's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about what I think is probably the biggest news going around right now, depending on whether you're a PC gamer or someone who plays on a Nintendo Switch. Kind of seems like you're invested in this story in some capacity, so why not talk about it for a bit? So, let's do exactly that. Now, for those who are unaware, it is possible, even though this has been all over the place, it's been all over Twitter, all over social media as a whole. But just in case you're one of those few people who are unaware, recently Valve, people behind Steam, Gabe Newell, Gaben, all that good stuff, has come out with a announcement. And that announcement is the Steam Deck. What is the Steam Deck? You might be asking if you are unaware somehow. The Steam Deck, in terms of its form factor specifically, is basically a Switch. If you look at it, if you look at what it looks like, this is basically a Switch. It also has a dock, although when you buy it, it does not come with a dock. You have to buy the dock separately, so keep that in mind. But it basically does what a Switch does. You can play games portably on this device. And dock it into a TV and play the games on your TV. Now, people have jokingly called the Steam Deck the Switch Pro since we didn't actually end up getting a Switch Pro, and it has a very similar, I guess, shape of sorts. And basically, the Steam Deck allows you to play your PC games that you own on Steam on this more portable device. Now, technically, you could do other things with it. Since it's basically just running, if I remember correctly, it's running on SteamOS, which is just like a modified Linux like operating system. So you could pretty much just install Windows and then use it to emulate, use it to play probably Game Pass on PC if you're a subscriber of Game Pass on PC, or just a wide array of different things, right? And on top of this, the deck is also significantly more powerful than a Switch. Now, price is going to be a big factor here, I feel. But depending on who you are, it might not be a big deal. It may be a big deal. That's the point of this video, so we can kind of talk about it. Now, when we look at the Nintendo Switch, right? We have the Nintendo Switch Lite, which is the lowest priced model of the Switch. It's like the entry point price, really, at $200. We have a regular Switch for $300, and now we have the the newly announced Switch OLED for $350. Now, when you look at the deck, however, the deck is different. The lowest model is $400 with like a 64 gigabyte memory size in there, right? But then they have two other models, and I believe the one in the middle is about $530, and then you upgrade to a 256 gigabyte SSD. Pretty good upgrade, right? And then on top of that, the best model, the most premium model of the Steam Deck will run you like $650, and will basically be a 512 gigabyte SSD. And then I believe you also get like a certain kind of screen that is like non-glare. Not entirely sure the technology behind it. I'm not usually into these sort of things that would look into that, but you guys can definitely chime in and help the community learn more about what that essentially means. I'm sure they have some kind of technology to make that a thing. I don't know. I don't care. To be honest, it's not really a feature that I'm personally invested enough to care about. What I will say though is that the screen is gonna run games at basically like 800p, which is it's not a big deal. 720p on the Switch versus like 800p on like the deck, it's not big, right? But the actual hardware inside this thing is much more powerful. You're gonna be able to run much more intensive games. Any third parties that are on the Switch can basically run on the deck significantly better than it ever could on the Switch. So there's a lot of things going around with this thing. Like, a lot of people are really excited about this thing. And I guess like some people also bringing up the idea of, will this be the device that essentially kills the Switch, or at least competes with Nintendo? I think it's more likely that it'll compete in some way, but not necessarily kill the Switch. I feel like for it to kill the Switch, it kind of needs like games on that device that cannot be played anywhere else in some way. I feel like that's the main draw right now for the Switch. And I know there's the argument that, like, oh, look what happened with the Wii U. The Wii U lost all its third-party support in favor of, well, you know, the first-party games. And look how that turned out, right? And I guess to an extent I can understand that take, but the reason why I don't necessarily think that would happen with the Switch is because the Switch already has a massive install base. It's on its way to selling like 100 million units, right? Like it's already massively high, right? The amount of like Switches that are out there. So for the Steam Deck to come out now, where people are clearly like frustrated with the lower specs on the Switch, I think that's a good idea. I think they announced it at a good time because everyone was like eagerly waiting for a Switch Pro, and then, you know, here comes Valve with a device that is similar to a Switch with significantly better hardware. So it makes sense. Like, I get it. I think from a business standpoint, it makes sense. And even though I do think price might be an issue for like the average consumer, the enthusiasts, like, you know, myself or other people out there, they're gonna want to buy this thing, right? Like, I think this is something that appeals to like the more enthusiast crowd that already has a good Steam library. And for that reason, I don't think this is a bad idea. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this is a good idea, but I have a hard time seeing third-party support going away on the Switch with the Steam Deck being a thing, considering that the install size on the Switch is already pretty big. Like, it's already pretty massive. And then on top of that, they don't need to port a game to the deck, considering that it's just playing Steam games. So like, if your game's on Steam, it's already gonna, you know, be possibly ran on the deck. So I don't really see that being an issue personally. If anything, maybe we might see, you know, some competition in some way, but again, I have to reiterate, because of how many Switches are already out there, this feels like something that is going to be for more of a niche enthusiast crowd rather than a, you know, a more, you know, mass appeal kind of situation. I think Switch has already been out there for too long for people to suddenly just drop it suddenly, especially with like games like Breath of the Wild 2 coming out. I feel like the biggest draw right now for the Switch for a while now has been the exclusive games, because to my knowledge, not a lot of people have been buying third parties on the Switch as it is. There are some, of course, I'm not saying there isn't, but there's a reason why you see more of us talk about certain games coming to the Switch and not really talking that much about stuff like, you know, when Doom Eternal launched on the Switch. There's a reason for that, and we all know the reason for that, and the reason for that is because the games don't run as well. They're portable, which is nice, of course, yes, it runs not as good as the home console versions or the PC versions, but it is portable. But now that the Switch Deck exists, that slice of the pie is kind of gone for anyone who's willing to buy one. Now, I do see some drawbacks. The price is significantly like higher. If you're talking about just someone who just wants a device to play portably and doesn't really care about the bells and whistles, essentially, it's going to be harder to convince them to buy the base model $400 version over the base model Switch at $200. Again, I'm talking about the average consumer who doesn't know about tech specs, who doesn't know about these kind of things, who are not enthusiasts, who just kind of want a portable device to play on. And I think it's going to be much harder to sell them on a $400 device. Now, personally speaking, for myself, I know that if I spent $650, it's really going to be about $700 after taxes. So convincing me to bring out this $700 device in public in New York City, I would never. I would never do that, because I'm not stupid. I think that's, like, if you're from a neighborhood that's relatively safe and people never really, I don't know, get robbed or something, like, I don't know where that would be, but like, if it's not the hood, then, you know, maybe I can understand you doing that, but I know I'm not doing that. I don't even feel comfortable doing that with the base model at $400. I have a hard time doing that as it is with my actual regular Switch. So usually when I get these devices, they are things I play around the house. You know, if I want to watch something else, I also play that. And occasionally I'll bring the Switch Lite because it's only $200. You know, it's not as, I don't know, expensive and premium, essentially, as the other models. So I'll bring that outside. and use that to play games. I would say the biggest challenge for Valve is marketing. You need to be able to convince the public that this device is not only better than the Switch, it's also worth double the price of entry. That is going to be an uphill battle when you know there's 90 million people out there, or soon, I believe soon to be 100 million people out there with a Switch. That's an uphill battle, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but we've seen Valve come out with hardware before, like Steam machines, the Steam controller, that just don't end up doing anything. I will say I feel like the deck is the most attractive idea of these things, but again, we look at the history with Valve and hardware, and it doesn't seem to be, you know, the most positive. But who knows? Maybe this thing will blow up, and if that's the case, that's fine by me, because even if at the absolute worst, this does not compete with Nintendo at all, does not drive them to be better and make better hardware or whatever the case may be, at the very least, at least people got a cool device out of the deck. That's the worst case scenario, honestly. And honestly, that's not even that bad. It's really not even that bad. So let me know how you guys feel about this. I will say that as someone who made a Switch OLED video and now a Steam Deck video, I have pre-ordered both because I just want one. I'm not going to lie to you, I do, but I want both because I am that type of guy. But let me know how you guys feel in the comments down below. Are you getting a Steam Deck? Is this something that's going to be, you know, added to your collection, or is it just another fad that you're gonna, you know, calmly ignore and not even think about a month from now? But that's all I have for you guys, so take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Shifty, yeah, shifty, wanna be the #1 gamer, come and get me. It'd be dope if you subscribe, could you like the vid, please? Take your time, you don't gotta do it swiftly. Shifty, shifty, wanna be the #1 gamer, come and